please let me shoot the little thing until it goes away, like that kind of stuff. So those who are engaged in the immersive virtual worlds like WoW, like EverQuest, are really immersed, right? They're there all the time. But the majority of gaming, when you actually sort of work through and ask them about it, isn't that kind of immersive gaming.
And before I get to the porn, one more question. I think there's a lot of hands over here. Any questions, sir?
Based on what we've heard so far, the online world is a great boogeyman. It offers a quick press fix for legislators who want to try and regulate behavior that otherwise, that's going on offline also. And especially for the federal government, because it offers that interstate commerce, interstate communications flow, so to regulate behavior that otherwise would be within the province of the states. So how do you address that?
If you have Congressman Joe Blow out in the summer, and his constituents are concerned about these on the world, they don't understand. He wants to just throw some news down in the locker, get some publicity. How do you address that? How do you try and stem the tide of that legislation that's just being thrown out there? Instead, refocus those efforts onto natural causes of child abuse, bullying, and whatnot.
You tell us, please.
Yeah. A hot potato. Yeah. I think we need to recognize the difference between well-intentioned and versus things that can make a true impact.
I think what helps the most in my experience is having the person who writes the legislation needs to have a really strong understanding of how the technology works and how it's being used. And if you understand that, and I think hopefully what we've done here today is given a little bit of insight into some actual data that talks about these. Get the data, understand what's going on, and then make legislation based on that, on when you know something rather than on a hunch that we all have.
I don't want you to get what I'm saying wrong. One of the main things that the federal government has done is funded law enforcement to get trained to do policing on the internet. And I actually think that they're doing a very good job. The Internet Crimes Against Children task forces that have been set up all over the country, the training that they provided for local law enforcement, I think by and large has been very solid. And one of the problems with the internet is there's this sense that it's a no man's land, that there's no one in charge, that there's nobody patrolling the neighborhood. And I think it's good that we have people patrolling, and I think that the law enforcement need training in all the different techniques that are available and being part of that bystander community there. And so I would certainly, I'm a strong supporter for providing more funding for law enforcement to get that kind of expertise. I don't know whether there's a legislative role here, but I am concerned about the vigilante and the dateline and the entertainment dimension of this. I don't think that is a particularly good development. I think Dateline is to be congratulated for raising a lot of awareness about the problem. But I think now there's a big risk that it's getting institutionalized, that it's metastasizing, and other people are getting involved in the act. And I don't think this is a good development. This is a highly technical and professional activity that needs to be done by well-trained professional law enforcement people. And there are lots of dangers. I really foresee the potential of some very bad activities going on, discrediting the whole undercover effort that the good law enforcement is doing in this area. So I don't know whether there's actually a legislative solution there, but I definitely think that there's kind of a public pressure that opinion leaders can take to emphasize that this is something that we want our official law enforcement professionals to be doing, not combinations of vigilante groups and entertainment corporations.
I just went back, I agree that the law enforcement is doing an amazing job of a lot of things. And even some of the companies are working well with law enforcement to make certain that information flows. And we have to say that that's amazing to watch. But I do think that there are roles for police officers that are not just about enforcement of laws. And most of the roles of police officers online have been about enforcement of laws. And that is actually scaring away for the teens from even engaging with them, right? Like, if the police is going to see a red cup and assume that the kid's drinking and going to get them into trouble with their school, which is happening all over the place, they're not going to want to talk to them. They don't want to talk, if they've got pictures of graffiti in any form in the background on their pictures, they're not going to want to talk to them because they've been arrested for tagging. So there are roles that also for people that can play that are not just about going to get the kids into trouble, that I think that we do need to be funding. This is social work. This is people who are really well-intentioned and realize that sometimes these kids are doing drugs. Sometimes these kids are drinking. Sometimes these kids are engaging in things we don't like and are going to accept that and help the kid move in the right direction without just getting them into trouble. And we need to be funding and legislating more that actually supports and helps that and that effort rather than running away from it and rather than just assuming that it's all about enforcement.
I promise we don't have much time left, but I wanted to get to the porn. And another aspect we did a lot of unwanted contact, and now a major issue that everybody's concerned about if we unpack it is access to age-inappropriate material by young people, teens, younger youth. And the seminal work, the Youth Internet Safety Survey from 2000 and 2007 that Dr. Ibarra and Finkelhor participated in, basically shows that from 2000, while unwanted sexual solicitations, however that's defined, as you define it, have gone down in that time from 2000 to the follow-up study in 2007, the exposure to unwanted sexually explicit material has actually gone up during that time from 2000 to 2007 from 25% to 34%. And if I could ask you guys to comment a little bit about that and what you think that means. And secondly, one thing that has caused a lot of stir in the circles that I work in is that in one of the papers you've written that exposure to sexually explicit material has become normative as a teen experience, and that is disconcerting.
Well, it has increased. I think it's increased for several reasons. One is that the spammers got more creative about how they were doing it, and of course bandwidth increased. A lot of people in the time between 2000 and 2005 got hooked up on, in ways that it was much easier to access pictures. It has become normative in the sense that it is very common, but it's also become normative in the sense that I think that the vast majority of young people kind of dismiss it as kind of litter on their information superhighway. And when we ask them, was this a problem for you? Did this have any negative effect on you? They say no. But there are a small percentage of the kids who have fairly intense negative reactions, particularly to the unwanted exposure. I think, one, because it's unanticipated, unlike pornography exposure in the past, where I think young people tended to have some ability to anticipate that they were going to see it because the kids over there were making a fuss about it, or their friend was telling them what they were going to see. Now they're being confronted by it when they weren't anticipating it. I call this kind of an ambush exposure, which is something I think that is developmentally new. And I think also there's probably been a change because they're likely to see more extreme images than was conventional in the past. And to be honest, I think there's reason to be concerned about the kind of impact that this may have on this small group of kids who report it's negative, but we really don't know enough about it. We don't know if there are developmental residues. It really hasn't been studied. And if there are, we don't really know much about how to protect them from those impacts. So I would say the vast majority of kids it's not a problem for, but this small number, and we don't know exactly how many, I think that's that's a concerning issue, and I really feel like it should be a priority to do some research on that.
For me, it's not just an unwanted contact for young people. Adults don't like it either. And I think that there's this interesting issue where it's like, what does it mean that the technology enables certain kinds of ambushing of things that you're just like, ooh, and how much do you run away from it? Most of the time,